We are autistic. When we were kids, we couldn't speak. In this world that was not made for us, art is how we thrive.
Hi, my name is ManMan. I use they them pronouns.
Hi, I'm Carrie. Oh, we are actually autistic artists.
Skip this. Let's keep going. um,
Sorry.
so last time at the end of our episode, we mentioned wanting to talk about hypermobility. As we both are taiko artists and we love moving a lot, and actually hypermobility, a lot of times people might think of it as like, oh, that's for benefit for you as a mover, but actually both Carrie and I struggle a lot with this condition that we both living with. So sitting here today, it's actually really perfect timing that we decided to talk about hypermobility, because this week Carrie has just got your diagnosis for Hypermobile Ehlers Danlos Syndrome. And so we definitely want to go into a little more details to talk about that. Whereas I'm here, I do not have a diagnosis. I'm pretty sure I have it, and including my father, that we both been sort of like exploring in our family history and things that we experienced. One of the things I think I definitely want to like explore and dive in is to see, wow, why, what is the benefit of having a diagnosis? There are definitely a lot of gaslighting in terms of both in the medical industry, because a lot of people who train in the medical field don't even know and aware of this condition. But it's connective tissues. Like it's basically, in the summary, it's we have some trouble with our connective tissues compared to most um, uh, typical people, and but connective tissues is everywhere in our body, and also looking at both of us being really like as a professional taiko artist, people see us on stage moving really well, but then in the contrary, with this condition, we actually struggle with a lot of pain. Sometimes we can't move or have trouble moving or so much more. And sometimes we struggle with this internalized gaslighting ableism, that we have trouble to come to terms with that, to ask for help and access need. So there's so much. and in fact, we both discover EDS because of our discovery of autism, because we heard about that a lot of people with autism actually experience EDS, and that's kind of how we went down that path and realizing, wow, that's what we live with. Okay, so Carrie, why don't you take us in to talk about your diagnosis?
I want to first talk about that moment, I think, where we became aware of EDS, the beginning of this journey of getting diagnosed. And I think that it's very deeply connected to this this phenomenon of gaslighting that I have experienced myself when bringing symptoms to medical doctors. I, I mean, just in general, so many times in my life, I can remember going to the doctor and saying, like, there's this one thing that I'm struggling with. And in my head, I'm thinking, but I think it's also related to this other thing and this other thing and this other thing. But I restrain myself from sharing all of those other things, because then it gets to be too big of a conversation. It's impossible to sort of narrow down what the goals are, because there's so many different areas of my body, so many different directions that we could possibly go with, that it becomes overwhelming. And because it is so big, I've spent so much of my time trying to just figure things out on my own. And I've had that experience so many times when I go into an appointment and I say, like, this is what I'm experiencing. This is what I think it is. Like, I always come in with my own sort of idea, my own diagnosis, because I feel like otherwise we don't really go anywhere. Or at least it doesn't feel like there's much progress going on. And I do know my body best. But at the same time, these experiences of doctors saying, like, oh, well, that's not related to this. Like, just if I bring something up, well, it's not related. We're going to focus on this other thing. And just pushing aside all these other things I'm concerned with, it's affected me and how I experience my symptoms, how I react to my symptoms, and in some ways, why I've come to really normalize a lot of the pains that I experience. And I remember, let's see, this is July. It's exactly one year, because I remember it was this exact week a year ago when we were having a meeting on Zoom, and I think we were kind of wrapping up, and you were like, oh, I just learned about this thing called Ehlers Danlos. It's hypermobility. And you said, do you have this too? I think I have it. And I was like, no, like, that's not me. Like, I don't have hypermobility struggles. And that, I mean, I attribute that now to this process that I've gone through, where people have told me, you know, you're imagining that, or there's no way that's related to this, or like, I can't tell you anything about that or why it's happening to you. And so I've just sort of, okay, well, if I move this way, if I stretch in this way, if I do these exercises, I find that it relieves my pain, so I'll just do that. And then just sort of living with it, because what other choice do I have? So as, I'm sorry, 1 second. We're gonna have to cut this out. Hey, what are you doing, bud? Can you go in the other room, please? Do you need something real quick? All right, we're recording right now, sweetheart. Okay? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. But we are doing it right now. I'm sorry. What was I saying?
Trivial to that.
So sort of fast forwarding now, to having this diagnosis as of 2 days ago, I feel like I sort of needed some kind of validation in order to push me to actually try and get diagnosed. Like, the more I read about Ehlers-Danlos and sort of settled into realizing that all of these adjustments that I've made, you know, I go on a car trip, then I have to stretch for 30 minutes afterwards, otherwise I can't physically function. That I am actually experiencing a lot of what is described as Ehlers-Danlos. My cousin in January sent me a message and said, hey, I just want to let you know, I just recently got diagnosed with EDS. It's called Ehlers Danlos Syndrome. This is what it is. I wanted to let you know because it runs in families, and, you know, in case you want to look out for it in your kids. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, then I was like, okay, like, if I find the right doctor, a doctor who I know is familiar with EDS, and I go in and say, this runs in my family, these are my symptoms, like, it felt so much better going in like that. And I don't know, I found someone who is really great at listening. Like, I go in the office and I say, actually this last time I said, I have a lot of questions today. And he said, what are your questions? Like, okay, I asked the first one, he'd answer, take notes. What's your next question? Like, just moving through it, making sure that we have enough time for me to just address everything I'm concerned with, or I have questions about, or ideas I have about what might be going on, and just getting a very, I don't know, like a supportive response. I mean, like, he acknowledges that this is something that's very difficult to live with. He also acknowledged that as a taiko player, as someone who is moving and aware of my body, that it is something that will be more easily managed than for a non-active person or a person who doesn't have as much body awareness as I do. So I feel like we're at a good starting point. But at the same time, it's very overwhelming because EDS is progressive. So when I have a flare-up, it's hard to sort of deal with the emotions that come with that. Like, is this going to be like this forever? Like, or is this just like something that's going to go on for a couple months and then it's going to feel better? So I'm very, very excited to have the diagnosis and also have lots more things to think about going forward.
Right. Yeah, I'm really excited for you. And I'm also been processing a lot, doing a lot of research, and also things that I experience in everyday life that, like the gaslighting that we experience. So we're gonna take a breath and then we can dive in a little more in terms of like how does that affect us and how are we finding ways to cope with this. Okay, so see you in the deep dive video.
All right.